in this session, we're going to be seeing the idea of teaching the B1 learner. Alejandro, the place is all yours. I'm going to make you the host now, so you can start sharing your screen. There we go.
Hello, everybody. Should I say good evening, good morning? I don't know. You are all from this country, I think. So good evening. Hello, how are you? It's good to see you all there. Some clarification, precisely. This is one. My dog is barking, okay? So some clarification, okay? The thing is that being exposed to this kind of mode of interaction implies lots of changes in our way of presenting, okay? One of them is that technology might not work, okay? Or it might be slow, right? Or the noise might affect us. Or perhaps it's time for the dogs to go out, or they are telling me it's time for me to go out. So, but never mind, there's somebody who is going to take my dog out. But the idea is that I need to clarify this in case something happens, okay? Well, I want to start I want to add something to what is just being said. I want to say that I'm also at the moment a teacher, and I'm teaching English as a foreign language. But I'm also teaching Spanish as a foreign language, which is fascinating because being a native speaker of Spanish is so interesting to learn about, this position and this idea of teaching Spanish. Because you think that as you are a native speaker, of course, you know how to teach Spanish. That is not true, okay? But I have learned through my experience as a teacher of English, okay, what it takes to teach Spanish. I want to connect this to my next point, which is now I'm going to share the screen with you, okay? So I'll be talking for some time about this B1 level, and I'll be talking about different ideas concerning, speaking as well as reading, okay? These are my two babies this afternoon, this evening. Now, so I want to do it, and I want to refer to this in the light of how I have organized this presentation. I'm going to be talking for a while, okay? If you feel interested to take an active role in this, okay, I suggest you use the chat, okay, which is, I think, on the right side of your screen is the chat, or it's below, I'm not sure now. But look for the chat and write some questions or comments you would like to make, so that at the end, either you are being reminded by your comment, or I am reminded, and we can open some kind of discussion, okay? I'm going to be referring to this effective B1 speaker and reader, and I'm going to also justify as to why is it that we connect speaking and reading? I mean, why the two of them together? And I'm going to refer to strategies which might help us, and I'm saying might help us to become, better, to be better prepared or better equipped to teach our students so that they can reach this level. So let me start by sharing with you the proposal, what I call the proposal, right? Some people call that the menu or the map, okay? So why this session, right? Why this session? Why this relationship between reading and speaking? And also what is B1, right? And what can we do for our learners? And finally, I think we have the conclusions and suggestions. The first question is, why this session? Well, for the last, 15 years, 10 years perhaps, our teachers, our learners, our system, authorities, the world, everyone's been talking about, levels of international performance, okay? We have been talking about A1, A2, B1. We've been talking about exams, international exams. We have been talking about standards, right? So this is new to most of us, okay? In the sense that we never spoke about standards, say, in the 60s or in the 70s. I don't think we even talked about standards in the 80s. Perhaps in the 90s we started. I mean, this country, our country, we started talking about standards. So why this session is because everyone is talking about this, and we need to understand what it means to work towards standards, right? So this is the main reason as to why this session. Another reason has to do with the relationship existing between reading and speaking. Every time you are asked this question, do you know French? Do you know Italian? People actually mean, do you speak the language? Okay. Nobody ever asks you, do you read in this language? Okay. The first question that you are asked is, do you speak English? Okay. Do you speak English? If you say, yes, I do, it means that you know English. but perhaps you don't know how to read in English, or perhaps you don't know how to understand when people speak to you in English, okay? So there is a relationship between this idea of speaking and reading, because most of what we say in life is a result of reading. Or let's put it this way, when we read something, we usually use these ideas associated to reading so that we can talk later. So sometimes when you say, I admire this person, I'm so impressed by this person, he has so many interesting ideas, normally that person is a good reader. Okay, so there is a connection between being a reader and being a speaker, right? Being a speaker, if not a good proof of that, is the way lawyers speak. Okay, lawyers, when you can detect when a lawyer is in front of you because of the language. They talk in such a way, they look wise wherever they go, it's because they have read a lot. Okay, so there is a connection between reading and speaking, and this is why I want to tackle this in this session. We also need to understand what is B1 level, because for those who were trained, last century as language teachers, right? You may remember that we were given other labels. We were beginners, we were intermediate students, advanced students, okay? We were students of a language in level 1, level 2, level 3, but now you're talking about B1, C1, A2. When you say, I am an A2, and I'm an A2 learner, or I am an A2 user, right? I am a B1. You say, what is that? Okay, what does that mean? Okay, so we're going to analyze that as well. So, and in the light of what we discover, we're also going to see to what extent we can help our learners to reach that level. And when I say to what extent, is because nothing can be guaranteed. Remember that learning is something that you cannot be guaranteed. We have attempts. This is a very humble opinion. Irrespective of the methodology you use, irrespective of the textbook you use, irrespective of everything, this is an attempt to help learners to learn, but it's a good attempt. And finally, we're going to reach some conclusions or suggestions. Perhaps they're going to be mine, but you may also add your own suggestions to the list, okay? So this is the proposal, and I intend to cover this proposal in the next 50, 60 minutes or so, right? So let's start by an assumption. In our profession, there are lots of assumptions. For example, you say, if you study English every day, you will learn English. No, not really. It's an assumption, because you may study every day and you may be exposed to a lot of English, and perhaps there are good opportunities for you to learn, but it's not guaranteed either, okay? If you are a native speaker, then you know English, okay? That's also an assumption, okay? Because we are all native speakers. Perhaps you are also native speakers of other languages, but being a native speaker of Spanish doesn't mean that we know Spanish, right? So at times we say, okay, I don't know. And what does it mean to know? That's something else, okay? So there are some assumptions. This is not an assumption, this is a fact. Most of us in this country were trained as teachers of English as the foreign language. So our main concern and our main focus was English as a foreign language. So in other words, English to be borrowed as a language to communicate with the world, okay? So English to be borrowed as a loan, okay? So we use English as a loan, okay? Something which came from abroad so that we could use it to understand the world and to understand, originally, to understand English-speaking people, but not necessarily today. It's to understand the world because it has an international status now, right? So English as a foreign language. So most of us, I said most of us because some of them now, not of us, some of them now are being trained to become teachers of English as a second language, which is a different domain, as a second language where they use English to teach science, mathematics, and other subjects in English, okay? So, but in our case, it's English as a foreign language. The status of the English in this country is a foreign language. It is a foreign language because we don't use it in everyday communication, but we borrow it when there's a need. And so this assumption takes us to, well, this fact takes us to the assumption. When being trained as a language teacher and also being trained as language users, we were basically trained in the system, in the language system, right? So we were trained in grammar, in vocabulary, in endings such as meant and would and shape and so on and so forth. But we were also trained in in phonological patterns, in rising intonation, falling intonation, you know, the different vowel sounds, and so on and so forth. So we were mainly, not only, but mainly trained in the language system. So in other words, if you could manage the language system, you were in a position to say that you have learned the language, okay? But that's an assumption, because learning the language system does not necessarily take you to effective spoken language, language interaction, and reading competence, all right? So in other words, there are not some people who know English. They have a good knowledge of English. They know the language system, and they can even lecture on grammar, or they can even talk about, and they are not teachers of English. They are people who know English, but they're unable to interact, or they're unable to read and understand and critically make a contribution, you know, to interaction as a result of reading, okay? Because the language system, being trained in the language system does not necessarily entail that you will become a user of the language, right? You can become a knower of the language, but not necessarily a user, right? So this is the first assumption. There may be exceptional cases, though. There may be people who, having been trained in the language system, they develop some kind of inner capacity to communicate and to interact later, okay? That's something else. And also, let's not deny the fact that today, many teachers are teaching not only the language system, but they're also teaching people how to communicate and how to interact, okay? So this takes us to the level. This has to do with history, and it has to do with Europe. And very briefly, I want to refer to this very briefly, but historically, Europe was a continent, still is, but was a continent because, you know, they didn't work, you know, in some kind of cooperative style, okay? They did not interact the way they do now. They were isolated countries. So if you were from Portugal and you wanted to go to France, you needed a visa. You were French and you wanted to go to, I don't know, Germany, you needed a passport or some sort of document. So, but they learned that it was a good idea to become an alliance, okay, some kind of coalition. And Europe, still being a continent, decided to open, you know, borders, frontiers, right? And they decided to get organized so that somebody being a citizen in Portugal should also have the same status of being a citizen in Italy, for example. And this is when some of the challenges were, okay, I'm an architect, but I was trained in Italy and I would like to work in France. What can I do? So they organized their curricula, you know, in such a way that the training of architects is similar, right? At least the minimum training that they should receive is minimum. So there is validity now in what they do and what they are. So somebody being an engineer can work in a country which belongs to the European community, right? So that's the first thing. And they started sort of solving issues such as the currency. So they invented this euro, right, the currency. They also have this European Parliament and lots of laws, which were laws of cooperation. But the problem remained because they said, but we're still different because we have different cultures and different languages. Okay, so in order to understand this, they decided to say, look, there isn't a language which is much better than the other language, but at least we have to identify levels. Okay, we have to identify levels of performance. I mean, what people can do. Right, so somebody being a non-user of English or a non-user of French, it's the same in terms of performance, in terms of what I can do. And B1 is one of the levels. So there are 6 levels associated to the Common European Framework. They are not exams. Some people think that they are exams. No, these are not exams. There are exams, and there are different institutions offering exams to validate the levels. But these are the levels. So what is B1? B1 has been referred to as somebody who is independent in terms of, you know, the use of the language, somebody who can react and who can, you know, say things in the language without having to observe the language structure. Okay, I remember when I was a learner ages ago, some teachers of mine said to me, if you are asked a question in present, you have to answer in present. If you're asked a question in future, you have to answer in future, okay? But life has shown me that sometimes a question is in present and I may refer to my past by giving the answer, okay? So that's an independent user, okay? An independent user is somebody who, you know, uses the language at his disposal, right? And also is somebody who is quite fluent, right? Particularly when communicating with native speakers, right? We'll come back to this idea of what it means to be fluent, okay, at this level. Somebody who's limited, however, okay, is limited in the sense that the scope of interaction has to do with familiar situations, right? Familiar situation. What is familiar situation? Talking about your work, talking about your friends, talking about your family. That's familiar. Talking about the effect of vaccination for this situation that we're now facing and the cultural effects of this on some people, this is not a familiar situation. Okay, you can't talk about that. Okay, and it doesn't have to do with the language. It has to do also with the kind of, form or the kind of performance or the kind of ideology or the kind of position that you have regarding that. So this is basically a familiar situation. I'll show you that in some activities, right? And also there may be some other general ideas concerning non-routine information. So there may be something which is not known, but it's general, extremely general, right? So that's basically what a B1 learner is, okay? Let me stop for a while, because to understand communication, we have to understand this in the context of what we think, what we believe, okay? And this is what some people call principles, okay? Principles is what I believe in, okay? And these are some of my principles when dealing with communication. First thing is this, and I hope you agree with me, messages are not always clear. Okay, this is life. Messages are not always clear. The message that you might communicate to somebody may be clear, but it might not be clear to the person who is exposed to this message. And sometimes our own message is not very clear. Okay, we are saying something, but it's not very clear. Right? So the first thing is to understand that in communication, messages are not always clear. The idea is that, well, they should be, but they're not always clear. Communication can be unpredictable. I mean, when there are some predictable issues, okay, that's why it says can be. So communication, when you say something like, hello, how are you? Fine, thank you, and you? Fine. This is highly predictable. It comes in textbooks, you expect this, right? But there may be other questions, or there may be other ways of interacting which, you simply don't know what to say. You don't know exactly what to say, okay? Try to go to a cocktail party and try to predict what people are going to be talking about, okay? You know that they're going to be talking about. The only thing I can predict when I go to a cocktail party is that the first 30 minutes, people are going to be kind of intimidated. They're not going to say much. They're going to be quiet. And this is why we are offered drinks, okay? Because after an hour, everyone is talking, okay? But nobody knew what kind of topic they were going to be talking about, okay? So communication can be unpredictable. Another principle, when people communicate, there's always a purpose. There's always a purpose. I mean, even if the purpose is obscure, there is some kind of intention. In other words, people do not say things because they want to. So this is why sometimes you're a student, you ask your student, what is it? And they say, no, nothing. And it's not true. It's not true. Or when people say, no, I don't know. They do, but they don't want to say what they have in mind. So there's always, a purpose. Sometimes the purpose is something intimate. Perhaps you don't want to say it, but that's a different issue. So there is always a purpose when people talk, when people write, when people communicate. And also, my last principle is hesitation, silence, and mistakes are part of communication. Okay, so hesitating is perfectly correct. Okay, it's part of communication. Silence as well. It's impressive, the power associated to silence. And some people are very good at managing this. Right, so far so good. We have said something about the principle of communication and about the level. What can B1 users, I'm saying users, right, of English can do? And mind you, this applies not only to English, but this also applies to French, Italian, as foreign languages, okay? Because this is common European framework. Common is a common framework that's been defined so that they can understand. So if somebody says, for example, I am an engineer, or I'm a psychologist, I am French, I speak French, and I want to work in Italy. Okay, if you are a psychologist and you are French and you want to come to Italy, you are more than welcome, but you have to speak Italian at a certain level. What level do I need? B1, or it can be B2. Okay, so this identifies the European community, and although it's called Common European Framework, this applies to practically all languages, not only in Europe, but this goes beyond Europe, okay? So this is what a B reader and a B speaker can do, okay? The first is speaking, okay? I'll show two of these. Well, people notice that we say can, okay? users of speaking, in this case, can understand the main ideas, okay? Main ideas concerning familiar topic, familiar matters, right? Main ideas. So when they say they're talking about family, they're talking about work, they can understand, right? They might not understand other things, but precisely this attitude towards language learning and language use doesn't stimulate, as in the past, what learners cannot do, right? But what learners can do. This is why it's called can-do statements, right? And they can also, deal with situations which, might be connected to traveling, okay? This is the best example of what you can do in this particular level, or at this particular level. I mean, you can manage such a situation. These are two, but there are two more, I think. Yeah. You can also produce. It's not only understanding. Okay, so if you understand, you can produce. I mean, this is the idea. People do not listen and they remain silent. Okay, they might remain silent on occasion, but this is for you to generate something. So they can produce connected tests. Once again, topics which are familiar or topics which are of interest to them. They can also describe experiences, events, dreams, ambitions, plans. They can talk, they can give opinions, right? So this is what they can do. They cannot talk about, they cannot lecture on the whatever, okay, on technology and the new inventions associated to computer programs. No, not at this level, because first of all, it's not something that belongs to the familiarity of the user, right? So what about reading? In reading, I have structured two ideas. Readers at this level can understand text, but once again, texts which are connected to frequency or frequent topics, right? So language which can be found every day connected to job, connected to family, they can understand that, or connected to some ideas which have to do with a degree of familiarity. They can understand description of events, feelings, wishes, and I'm thinking of this. There are some learners who can say, I know what this is about. This is a story, actually. This is narrative. Okay, perhaps they don't understand the details of the narrative, but if they can recognize that this is a narrative event, okay, they are getting close to it. Okay, they're getting close to that. But it takes more to that than just identifying this. Let's continue. Okay, so far we have this idea of what users of this level can do when they speak and when they read. Okay. And how do we know, or what do we pay attention, okay, or what kind of parameters do we use to identify that there is P1 performance? So there is P1 performance, Interestingly enough, this is an exercise that you can do, right, if you have the chance, right? I usually refer to this as an interesting exercise. Is sometimes you're exposed to people who speak English, okay? And sometimes it happens in a very kind of close environment. Perhaps not now, but we'll come back to this practice in the future, which is when you're at an international airport. Sometimes you are at an international airport, okay? And you listen to people speaking, exchanging ideas. And when you listen to them, you might even say, wow, very good English, or oh, there are some mistakes, or oh, this is very slow, oh, this person speaks fast, okay, or this person shows that the accent is not an English speaking accent, okay, right? And all these ideas which are perceptions. But on the other hand, if we want to be much more scientific and critical about that, we have to identify indicators. This is what we call performance indicators. And which are the performance indicators for B1? Okay, in other words, what do we pay attention to? Range. Does the user, take advantage of the whole range of grammatical items? For instance, is the user somebody who says but, and, but, and, but? So in other words, is a but and user, or is this person somebody who says so, therefore, though, although, thus, then, after that, later? Okay, so this has to do with range. Range in terms of grammatical structures, range in terms of vocabulary, and range in terms of, all the resources that the person can have. And this will give you an idea of B1 performance. So this is one of the items to pay attention. It's valid not only for B1, it's valid for A1, A2, B, all the levels, C1, C2, etc. Accuracy, okay? Here we are much more lenient. I mean, in the sense that accuracy is understood as something that, you know, they can have, they can manage, but they don't have to be perfect. Okay, they can still be intelligible enough, they can communicate ideas, and if they don't, they can repair, they can use strategies. But accuracy is getting close to the forms, right? Another one is interaction. How do they interact? How do they interact? It's not a question of simply using the language, but knowing what to say, when to say, to whom, why, how often to say, you know, what particular moment to interact, and so on and so forth. It has to do with communication as well. Fluency. I tend to refer to fluency to this act of being or speaking naturally. Okay, when you are natural. Fluency has to do with I forget the idea, but I keep on saying things, right? Or I don't remember the word, but I find the root. Okay, so being fluent. Okay, being fluent is another one, and also my favorite items: coherence and cohesion. Coherence. I usually identify coherence by identifying people or examples of incoherence. Okay, when people are incoherent, when you're not talking seriously, or when what you're saying is not part of the conversation. Okay, so being coherent implies, you know, making a contribution in the light of what's been discussed. And being cohesive implies using the right connectives, using the right ways of linking ideas. Okay. Now, this is more or less these are the indicators, but I want to move on to this, which is the most attractive thing. What can we do when we are developing strategies for speaking? Okay, at B1 level, what can we do so that we can generate, you know, activities among our learners, our users, okay, of English? Okay, the first thing is monologues. Okay, and here in monologues we have a whole list of ideas. For example, and this can be very simple. For example, say, tell me about your family. Okay, talk to me about your friends. Okay, talk to me about the likes, the things you like and the things you don't like. Okay, say something about that. Okay, what or even something, a question is, why did you go to that place? Okay, sustained monologue, and the person, the user, you know, makes contributions along the lines of what is being asked. Sustained monologue. Okay. Sometimes people who have this level can make public announcements, very simple ones, such as, I want to say that the library will close earlier today. Okay, good. It's an announcement. Okay. We also have people making sure that they understand audiences, okay? And the audiences may be different, okay? Addressing audiences, such as, what do I do if I have to speak to a group of students or my classmates? What do I do if I have to refer to, you know, if I have to speak to children, very young children? I mean, how different is it to speak to young children? How different is it when you speak to authorities? Okay, addressing audiences. This has to do with the how can I say, the subtle way of dealing with language. Okay, now, and I'll show you some more. Compensating is also part of this level. Compensating is, there may be something I don't know how to say it, I don't know how to express it, but I can find the way to say it. I can compensate with another word, with an expression, I can give an explanation, and so on and so forth. So the idea is, finally, the idea is that we have to help our learners, if we want them to reach this level, in accepting that all this is part of the level. Okay, so ask learners to produce monologues of some sort. Okay, so that they can say, look, my idea is, okay, what do you think of this? Okay, well, I think, very simple language, this is difficult, and perhaps no more. Why? So you stimulate this. Okay, so this idea of sustained monologue. I know that sometimes our students don't dare to say much, but they have information, they have that. And it has to do sometimes with self-esteem, it has to do sometimes with, you know, opportunities for them to speak, right? But make sure that they understand that all these different activities can be used to generate the level. When I say monitoring and repair, this has to do with what do you do, or perhaps rather than what do you do is, What do you think you could do if you make a mistake and you notice that you have just made a mistake? Okay. What can you do if you notice that communication breaks down when you're talking? Okay, and then you realize that you don't know what to say. For example, when they are presenting, when they're in front of the data and the PowerPoint, and they say, and then they're blank. They get blank. There's a blank, and they don't know what to continue, what to say, how to continue. So what do you do? Okay, come on. Yeah, what is it? Okay, what do you do when you forget? Because this is similar to what happens to us in life. What do you do? So we need to provide learners with ideas to face this. Let me show you some possible tasks. For example, this. What's your favorite city? Why? The why can be asked later, okay? But when you say, what's your favorite city? Okay, what's your favorite? This is very simple language. What's your favorite city? Possibly people might say, learners, user might say, my favorite city is Valparaiso, okay? Or simply Valparaiso, right? Okay, and you say, okay, really? Oh, really? It's a contribution, right? Rather than answer using complete sentence. That's not a contribution, okay? But you say, really? Yes, Valparaiso. Why Valparaiso? So you encourage them to say more, okay? Because it is different, very different. Indeed, it is. I like it too. It's quite different from Santiago. You're right. Yeah. Okay. Any other reasons? Valparaiso is I don't know. It's I'm sort of monitoring myself. I'm looking for words. Okay. It's special. It's meet many people in the streets in the evenings. Okay, right. I see. Yes, there is kind of nightlife different from Santiago. Right. I also like it. You're stimulating this idea by asking this simple question. If you ask what's your name, what's your address, what's your favorite number, you can ask what's your favorite city. What's your favorite profession? What's your favorite country? What's your favorite language? Okay. What's your favorite, actor, football player? Why? By asking why, you give the chance for them to develop. But don't penalize. Let them develop the language. Don't say no. Come on, after me. Do. No, don't correct. Don't do anything. Okay. Just let them be. Okay. So this is in order to rescue them because they need to be reinforced in their own capacity to express their ideas. Another one that might also generate, interaction is, do you enjoy meeting new people? In some exams, you have questions of this sort, right? In some classes, in some textbooks, you also have questions of this sort. Okay. Do you enjoy meeting people? Do you enjoy meeting new people? Right? Some people might say, no, not really. Why not? Okay. Yeah. Oh, I see. Yes. Right. Oh, it's an interaction. Okay. It's yeah. You're saying what made, and you can even go if they can say more. You can say, why do you enjoy meeting people? What is so attractive about that? What is so attractive about meeting people? What has been the happiest thing for you this year? What has been the most memorable moment of your life? What has been okay? If you notice the degree of difficulty, the first one is quite simple, right? And then you develop this. Which do you prefer? I love this because this which do you prefer can be used in practically anything you want to compare and contrast. Which do you prefer? Living in the city or living in the country? Okay, which do you prefer? Okay, so yeah, because that people take options in life. Which do you prefer? Techno music or folklore? Okay, which do you prefer? Tennis or football? Which do you prefer? Santiago or Valparaiso? Okay, which do you prefer? Speaking English or listening to English? Okay, which do you prefer? To speak or to write? I don't know. Which do you prefer? Which do you prefer? Remember that by saying which do you prefer, you have plenty of and ample opportunities to develop language in our learners. Okay, this is taken from it's not like this, but it's taken from some exams when people have to show that they are at B1 level. Talk about this photo. The instruction is not like this. It's much more sophisticated. It says, look at this photo. In this photo, but I'm not going to refer to that because I'm not referring to any exam in particular. But there are visual stimulus or stimuli really, okay, to talk. Okay, and people have to talk. Now, when you talk, I have, through my experience, I have identified this kind of pattern when when users of B1 have to talk, okay, which in my opinion is not very productive. They say, all right, in this photo, there's a family, they are having lunch. There are two children, there are two men, two ladies. One lady is older than the other one. They are laughing. Okay, and that's it. Okay, and I say, and what time is it? What time is it? I don't know. But what time do you think it is? Lunch. Well, 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock, right? And why are they laughing? Well, I have no idea. Well, but tell me, what do you think? Why do you think they're laughing? Oh, because something funny happened to somebody. To whom? Oh, to the lady, because everyone is looking at the lady, right? And what do you think happened to the lady? Oh, I see, and it's pushing learners, users to say more. Okay, it's impressive because when you develop this capacity, you can even say what they were doing earlier this morning. You say they are laughing because in the morning they went to the supermarket, and at the supermarket they say things which you cannot observe in the photo. Okay, but it shows that they have developed a certain degree of communication, of interaction that is quite valid. It goes beyond the tangible, the observable. Now, in connection with reading activities, we have different ones, of course, right? We have different reading activities where you have, well, of course, you read correspondence. You don't read letters as we used to, not anymore, but people read emails, okay? People read WhatsApp. People read, what else do we read? We read PowerPoint presentations, okay? But we do read, okay? Some people say we don't read as we used to, but we still read, okay? Not very many people read books, or perhaps they do, but now it's kind of, technical, through a technical device, but we still read. So we need to understand that we read. And we read, in this level, we read topics of certain familiarity. Say, if there are novels, okay, so certain things, or shorter texts, but we read. We read sometimes because we want to have some kind of idea of what to do, right? So, for example, a leaflet, a pamphlet, a handout, a brochure, because we want to know what to do, okay? We read this, okay? And this is something that has to do with familiarity, okay? Things which we are used to seeing, okay? We read. My feeling is that the moment you read, well, in our own language, the moment we read in our own language, it's practically impossible not to read. So every time we observe the world, okay, and we're exposed to the written word, we read. And when we read, we wonder what is meant by what we read, okay? So we read, but we're always reading. And when we read, and if you're critical about this, and you're curious, and you are, let's say, creative, you might read and you might identify certain ideas behind that, okay? You might even develop this skill of predicting what's going to happen to the character, okay? So because you read, okay? But you don't have to read long texts, right? You can read the simple. For instance, this text, which is so simple, silence, okay? Silence. Why do you think this is written? Oh, because you have to be silent. Yeah, but why? Because you are in a place where you can't speak. Okay, what kind of place is that? Well, possibly in a classroom or in a hospital. In a hospital, right? Okay, who might have written this? Who might have produced this? Oh, the authorities. This is the conversation that generates thinking. And then you say, why did they say silence so directly? Okay. Oh, because you want to be effective, you want to be quick. All right, good. So when we use language of that sort, perhaps it is because we want to be directive, or because we want to be brief, or because we want to be effective immediately, right? Now, sometimes you read something longer, then you might say, look, this is long, it shows that it is complicated. Sometimes you read for information and argument, okay? You say, I know now everyone is reading more about this new law that is about to be passed, this thing that has affected the country, for good or for bad, okay? I leave it to you. But the idea is that everyone is trying to read more about this. There is an idea, I want to read, okay? So if there is a need, if there is an interest in reading, people will read. The same may happen to you when you have in one book, for example, or you may have prepared your own handout on a reading passage, and this reading passage might be about, let's say, might be about the differences between the different cultures in Latin America. Suppose that it is that different cultural behavior, different cultural behavior in Latin America. Okay, that's the reading passage. Okay, so what people in Bolivia eat, what people in Peru eat, what people in Chile eat. First paragraph. Second paragraph is what kind of celebrations they have. That's the idea. So how do you stimulate this? Okay, right? What do you say? Right? Perhaps you have to introduce this in such a way that you generate interest. Right? So in other words, you generate interest in those who will read, and you might say, "Hey, look, do you like my whatever? Do you like my pen? Do you like it? Okay, you know where I bought it? Okay, it's very nice. It's a souvenir. I bought it in Argentina. In Argentina, you buy this pen. Okay, in some places in Argentina, not everywhere in Argentina, right? Okay, this is an Argentinian pen, different from your pen. Okay, let's see. Okay, right. Okay, and then you might introduce concepts, and at one particular moment you might say, right, I want to invite you to go to the book because there is an interesting topic about differences between different countries in Latin America. So you read for information, you might develop arguments or counter arguments, but at the same time you are stimulated to read. Okay, so reading, some people are readers by nature, but some people need to be asked to read. Okay, and today many of our students read, I would say perhaps little than in the past, but they're still reading. Okay, if they're still reading, why not taking advantage of what they read so that they can, if they like technology so much, why not reading a passage about a child who has discovered that technology can also help family relations? There may be a passage on that. Okay, so you also read instructions, and these are some of the activities. I want to show you samples of reading now. Okay, do you mind if I drink a glass of water? If I sip some water, excuse me, okay? But let me press the button so that you can be exposed to this. Have a look at that. That's a good idea. That's a very good chance for me to drink. I'll stand there for a while. Have a look at that, please. Okay. Now, if you notice, we don't need to read it completely, but this is a typical passage that might come across if you are a B1 reader. A B1 reader is somebody who is in a position to understand this, and to identify what you are expected to do with this. It says here, why do economy class passengers get treated like second-class citizens? Why do economy class passengers get treated like second-class citizens? So you might identify that the tone of the passage. You might say, this seems to suggest difficulties. What I did with this text was the following. I highlighted the words I thought generated some kind of conflict, some kind of meaning to me, so I could summarize. I said second-class citizens, special offer, and bought, I can't see the rest because it's been covered by the screen, then 4 hours before my flight, okay, overbooked their flight, squashed between two. So all these seem to be negative things which have been mentioned here. So possibly this passage has something to do with that, okay? So there's a certain feeling. I can identify, I can even ask my learners or my users, who do you think wrote this? Can you define can you identify the writer of this, okay? A man, a woman, a lady, young, kind of middle-aged, okay? What somebody who, do you think the person is somebody who is used to traveling, okay? So something like that. All this implies, identifying a certain tone, identifying a certain idea. Why? Because there are questions associated to that which show what I'm just saying. The first question is, what is the writer's main aim in writing the text? Okay, how do you know that? It's not there. It's not there. It's not as it used to be. In the past, reading was the three dogs were walking in the park, and all of a sudden were running in the park, and all of a sudden they had an accident, and the owner did not take care of them. Okay. And then the question immediately below was, did the owner take care of the dogs or not? So the information was there in the text. But here, this is not in the text. What is the writer's main aim in writing the text? Okay, and this is an item that's been taken from one of these tests where the B1 level of reading is being assessed. Another question connected to that is, what would a reader find out from the text? This was my first reaction to the text. I said, this seems to generate problems, so I might find problems in the text, right? And this is valid for practically all tests, because if they are well written, normally the introduction tells you, it gives you the tone of the text. According to the writer, how can you make sure you get I think it's a seed. I can't see the last word, I'm afraid. Okay, according to the writer, how does the writer feel after flying economy class? Okay, how would you feel? Why? So this was my first point when I started today, saying, to what extent is reading connected to speaking? And this shows that it is connected, because you talk about this. You talk before, you talk after, you talk while, okay, you identify ideas, and no particular moment do I ask you, which tense is this? Which words are we using? Okay, I am not saying, okay, give me the answer in simple present. I'm not saying anything connected to the system. People might make mistakes, but they can still show me that they can understand the idea. Okay, and I might react. Okay, I might react to that. More examples. This is taken from one of the tests that assesses B1 level. Okay, have a look at some of them, and of course in the test you have alternatives. Okay, but this is the result. This is to assess a result. Okay, performance. But let's think of classroom work. When dealing with classroom work, perhaps it's good to generate this interaction and this conversation about the text rather than giving answers already. So, for example, if you look at this. If you look at the first one, it says this is an example, road closed due to flooding, okay, due to flooding. So what happened here? Yeah, there's a problem. Okay, where would you find this text? Who might be interested in reading this text? Okay, if you are at B1 level, you might say somebody who drives, somebody who has to go through the road, somebody who needs to use the road, but the road is closed. There is a reason why. It's a problem. I don't know what that word means. That may be a B1 user. I don't even know how you pronounce it. Okay, does anyone know? Yeah, it's flooding. Okay, what is flooding? Can you say that, what that is in English? Oh, there's a lot of water. When there's water that sort of inundates everything and floods, that's the word. Okay, so this is the reason why okay. So if that is the reason, look at the possible answers. Okay, you might this doesn't have to be seen, but it can be part of the interaction. Is it because the road? This is a problem that usually happens. Okay, we don't know. The text doesn't say it. Is it because the road is always closed? Okay, you see the alternatives. No, it doesn't say. It may be, but it's not the case. Or is it because the road is flooded now at the moment? Well, if this is a notice and it is somewhere, it's obviously because it's happening now. Okay, so and then you can develop, this idea of is it A, B, or C, right? So make them think. I find the fourth one beautiful, where it says Bristol via Bath. Bristol via Bath. You say, well, that's very simple to understand, but some people make mistakes. They say Bristol via Bath. Doesn't mean that the bus goes to Bristol and then Bath. The bus goes to Bristol Street in Bath, or the bus goes to Bath and then Bristol. Yeah, and it happens. Okay, you say, wow, yeah. So this is the kind of text in reading that you can be exposed to when dealing with the reading skills. Right, I think I'm getting close to the end. Okay, I hope I haven't been so fast, because the idea is that talking about B1 might take a life. Okay, I've done it in something like 40-50 minutes, right? But this is the idea. The idea is that there are examples connected to this. B1 is. Some people ask me, what does it mean in terms of textbooks? Okay, B1 is usually for someone who has finished 2 textbooks or practically any series, okay, practically any publishing company, right? Somebody who has done the elementary and the pre-intermediate, okay, and then when the person reaches that, is somebody who should have a level equivalent to B1. Another way of seeing it is for somebody who has done something like 300 hours of English, 300 roughly 300 400 hours of English. So starting from nothing up to 400 350 hours of English. Okay, so that's another parameter to identify what you should be able to do, right? Some people might say, okay, this is pre-intermediate. Okay, some people might say pre-intermediate, right? So they understand. Book 2, the end of book 2, okay? But you also have this international reference, which is B1 is somebody who is natural, somebody who can understand familiar situations, somebody who can manage in communication, somebody who can understand simple and familiar texts, somebody who can interact, right? It's not somebody who can offer a lecture. It's not somebody who can write a book, right? This is another level, but it's somebody who can write a message, it's somebody who can produce a poster, it's somebody who can even go to a museum in another country and follow the directions and find a map and discover the different rooms in the museum. The person can even ask some of the guys in the museum why this the collection is here and not there. I mean, you know, can interact and so on and so forth. It's more than being a tourist, although tourism is also a good, evidence for what they can do. But it's more than that. It's more than that. This is B1. And how we can help our learners to reach this level? Well, apart from what I have just said, it's also through these principles. Messages are not always clear, right? Messages are not always clear. In other words, when somebody's uttering, you know, some kind of idea, you might have to wait because you don't understand. Sometimes you don't understand because you need more evidence or more support or supportive ideas. Okay, but some people might understand, right? Sometimes I hear people using my language, but they're not my age, or I am not their age, and they understand each other very well, but I don't understand. Okay, so messages are not always clear. Messages may be clear to some of you, but if they are not clear, you have to open the room for clarification. Okay, you might open the strategies or use the strategies to invite people to say what they think. You say, oh, you mean, oh, what I'm sorry, I can't understand. What is it? This sounds interesting, but give me more ideas. I can't understand exactly what you mean. This is stimulating. So if you ask a learner, a user in the classroom, tell me something about your vacation, your last holiday. And the learner said, my last holiday, I go to the country because we have a house in the country and we go in car and I can understand everything, right? There may be problems in accuracy, right? So I might react, but I have to stimulate first, okay? I have to stimulate first because I need to understand that sometimes people, you know, can make contributions and sometimes the contributions are unpredictable, right? They are unpredictable. The most unpredictable learners are young children. If not, go into a kindergarten, right, and when the teacher is showing animals because the teacher is dealing with the farm, right, there's always a little girl saying, my aunt or my granny has a cow in the country, you know, the cow's name is, okay, even if it is in Spanish, and perhaps the teacher wants simply to present the different animals, the names of the animals, because they make contribution. They are eager to contribute, okay, to language, not just to language, to learning. They're eager, right? And later, our students, when they grow up, they seem to lose this, okay? They seem to, you know, forget that they are great contributors to language learning and learning in general, right? So we need to help them to make contributions because they always have something to say. There's always a purpose in what they want to say, right? We say, what do you think? I think I mentioned this some time ago. When you say, what do you think? You say this to a boy and the boy says, no, nothing. But you were saying something to your friend. Yeah, but it's silly. Why do you think it's silly? No, because it's silly. You know, but it's your idea. But my ideas are not very interesting. Come on, perhaps they are. Can we hear that? Well, if you don't want to, okay, later, perhaps you can tell me, okay? I mean, but encourage people, encourage learners, encourage users to go beyond and to use more, okay? Because when they hesitate, they are natural. When they are silent, silence means a lot. When they make mistake, okay, as far as the communication, we all make mistakes, okay? So this has to do with the principles of communication. It's a pity, however, that I speak and counter reactions do not come because you have to be looking at me and listening to me, okay? But I think that now we're reaching a moment where you can ask questions, but I want to share some conclusions of mine. You can add your own conclusions or some suggestions, okay? My main concern was to introduce the level to you, okay? To refer to the level today in the light of reading skills and speaking skills, okay? This was my main concern for this session, okay? And I wanted to show what the level was about. I wanted to give you context in terms of why this turned up to be an important thing to all of us, okay? B1 level, C1, B2, you know, why are we talking about these levels, okay? And this has to do with standards so that people can be accepted everywhere, right? And some of the conclusions are, it's always good to personalize our language classroom, okay? This is one of my conclusions. In other words, is if you want your learners to speak, speak. If you want them to say that you find it hard to understand what you're reading, share this with your learners so they may help you and they might feel at ease because they think that you're also having difficulties, right? Personalize your language classroom, okay? Personalize your language classroom. In other words, is you're not the knower. You're not the one who knows everything, okay? You are the one who is there to guide them, to lead them, right? And talk about what you read. If you really want to generate a good, how can I say, an essential attitude, positive attitude towards reading, talk to them about what you read, okay? Talk about what you read at all levels, not necessarily books, but talk about what you read, okay? And at the same time, when they're talking, I think I've shared this already with some of you, be an active listener. An active listener is somebody who reacts positively to what is being said, such as, really? No, why? Oh, when was that? Oh, that's marvelous. Okay, this stimulates talking, okay? If you are like this, or you are doing, well, if you're doing, which I call the cow syndrome, right? If you're doing that, you're not stimulating anything, right? But if you turn to somebody and say, hey, tell me more, that was fascinating, tell me more, what happened then? You didn't finish your story, can you tell me more? The one being approached would like to say more, would be willing to say more, okay? Natural interaction is I forget, I don't remember, or what's the word, or I'm sorry, what was I saying? Okay, this is natural interaction. Natural interaction is, I don't know, it's changing the concept or using a word that you don't have. You say, we went to this place, I don't know what you call it, but we went to this place where you buy, oh, what is it? Anyway, this is being natural interaction, right? Show interest in what others read, okay? If you see one of your students reading or with a book, you say, you're reading that? Really? What is it about? And do you like it? No, why not? Okay, so show interest in what others read, okay? And make your talk personal. I think this is the last one, if not, I'm not sure. Make your talk personal is, you know, you can be accused of being extremely selfish and self-centered, okay? But you are a reference for your students, okay? You have to say, I did this, once I went, once my family and I, you know, make your talk personal. This is my email. In case you want to contact me, this is my email, this is my personal email, okay? And in case you want to contact me because either you want to say something or you want to share ideas or you want to offer me a counter argument, okay, more than welcome. Write to me if you wish, and I always answer. This is something that I find is very valuable. I always answer. I'm going to stop presenting so that I can ask you to talk, to say something, or if you want to ask questions or to make comments, so that we can all now say something, or even if I don't know, somebody's been checking the chat. Okay. Yes.
Yes, we do. Thank you very much, Alejandro, for the presentation. It's very enlightening to know more about the levels and especially B1. And we do have questions that were done during your presentation. So the first one is, the strategies for speaking seem to be for assessment. If you're not assessing, how might you help a B1 learning improve?
The difference between assessing and evaluating, to me, resides on the fact that when you assess, you usually give a concept that might judge the person. Okay, you're good, you're not good, and to me, evaluation is what we do practically every day. Okay, so you have to change your attitude, perhaps. Okay, the same activities can be used for assessment, definitely yes, but at the same time, by being, as I said, more personalized, you might change that into a pattern of interaction, which is, I'm asking you because I'm evaluating this and perhaps I may be wrong. Okay, this is similar to what happens to you when you wake up in the morning. You leave, well, it was some time ago. No, it's not that common now, but you had to leave your house and you had to see the world and you have to face the world, and you started evaluating, not assessing, but evaluating, saying, if you had to take the underground train, where to sit, where to go, where to stand, this has to do with evaluation. So to me, this subtle, delicate, soft difference between assessing and evaluating has to do with an attitude. I agree. All these activities, because they are connected to B1, they are taken from a big one kind of scenario for learners to be assessed. But at the same time, they are part of the learning process, so that where they can be exposed, right? And they can be exposed, and then you can react with feedback such as, oh, that's nice. Okay, why that? Okay, good. And this is a contribution to evaluation rather than assessment. Evaluation in line. Okay. I don't know if that answers. Yeah.
I hope it does. If not, you can put it on the chat, but I think it answers it. We have another question. It says, when we talk about 300 to 500 hours, are we talking about time in class, paying attention, or does homework time count as hours?
No, normally when this is exposure, right? This is exposure. When you're exposed to that, okay? If you want to add to that extra work, such as homework, that's a different thing, okay? But there may be learners who might not need homework, or there may be learners who are highly attentive in class, or they really participate, or they are faster, or I don't know what kind of learners they are, but the minimum that you can have, right? Or let's say the average number of hours that you can have so as to be successful, right, is the one I've just given to you, okay? Now, if you have more, much better perhaps, okay? And this happens to school. In some schools, they think our learners are going to sit for an exam which is equivalent to B1, okay? Where or when in the curriculum? For this school is in the, they might decide this is the 7th grade. Some of the schools say, no, in our case it's different. It's going to be on the first grade, secondary school. This has to do with number of hours of exposure or the quality of the exposure. This is a fascinating topic because of the quality of the exposure, right? Mm-hmm. So, but that's a different issue, okay?
Perfect. I have another one, and I think it's very relevant for us today, is how can we encourage teens to speak?
Oh, that's nice. I love that, okay? I want to use this, I don't know what to call it, this philosophy of life that I think I have, right? Which is, I accept children the way they are because they are exploring. So I might find out through them what it is they want. In the case of adults, the other extreme is, okay, they know what they want or what they don't want, but it's their problem. But when I have to teach teens, right, I usually want to become one of them. I usually want to express my solidarity to them, okay? I usually want to know why it is they don't want to do that, okay? But this is me, okay? It doesn't mean that it works, okay? But to me, when somebody is, for instance, let me give you an example. Once there was this student of mine who was this leader, okay, that nobody wants in the classroom, who was encouraging everyone sort of so as to misbehave. And then I couldn't control that. And then I met him in the yard, in the ground, outside the classroom, and he was buying something, okay? And then I noticed that he had some kind of publication with a musical group, okay, which I didn't know. And then I said, excuse me, what is this a musical group? And he said, yeah, that's right. What kind of music do they play? oh, they play kind of rock, heavy metal, whatever. And then I said, oh, that's interesting. What is heavy metal? You don't know? No, I have heard so much about heavy metal. Well, to cut long story short, he felt that I was so interested in that, and genuinely I was interested because I didn't know much. Okay, and then he became some kind of ally. Okay, so we generated some kind of alliance, and he was the one who controlled the group. So what I'm trying to say is try to discover, because I don't think they don't want to do it. There may be reasons as to why they don't want to do it. Okay, one of the reasons is also bullying. The moment you speak English, people may laugh at you. Okay. But if you generate this atmosphere, it cannot be guaranteed. Nothing is guaranteed, but at least it's something. Okay. But I think it's not hard. It's challenging. It's quite challenging. Okay. So talk to them, find out through them what it is they feel and what it is they do not want to say things. Okay. Right.
Okay. We have another one. What are the main differences between B1 and a B2? For the expectations of language.
Right. Can I very briefly refer to A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2? 6 friends go to an English-speaking country. They all speak English, but at different levels. And A1 is the one who says, this is the ticket office. We can buy tickets here. A2 might say, I can buy the ticket and I can talk to the person who sells the ticket. B1 may say, I don't like the bus system in this country. I'm going to complain. Okay. B2 might say, look, this engine is different from the country we've just visited. I'm going to talk to the driver if I can have contact with the engineer so that we can have a discussion on engines, right? C1 is a person who says, you know what? They build engines similar to the ones I have been working on. So this is interesting. I want to have a very specific conversation with the engineers, right? And C2 simply says, I'm going to stay here longer because I've been asked to offer a lecture on engines, right? So these are the levels of operation of these different people, okay? They all go to the English-speaking country, but with different levels of English, right? Or the language we may have in mind. Okay.
Yeah, I think you answered the following question, that it was related to how do we manage when we have different levels in one classroom. So if we have an A1 and A2, a B1 and B2 inside the same classroom, how can we do it?
Yeah, but this is very similar to life. Once I read a wonderful article about levels, and one writer was arguing that there shouldn't be levels when teaching. They should all be together. The beginners, the A1, the A2, everyone together. Because when you go to an English-speaking country, people are not separated. You don't say, I'm a B2, can anybody speak to me because I'm a B2? And then we say, I'm a A2, so I'm a A2, can I speak to, who is an A2 here so that I can talk? So we are exposed to everyone. It was fascinating as an experience, but for practical reasons, we tend to separate this, okay? Yeah.
Perfect. I have another one. According to your experience, do textbooks really assure your students to get the level they promise?
No. Sorry, publishing companies, but no. It's not. Look, this is the equation. You might have a wonderful textbook and an awful teacher, and the awful teacher destroys the textbook. Now, the opposite. You might have an awful textbook and a wonderful teacher, and the teacher generates such a performance that the textbook becomes a jewel. Okay, so what am I saying? That it has to do with the process of being in the classroom, okay? Being and the quality of the teaching. Okay, I think that teachers are essential here, right? Teachers are so essential. The moment they go into the classroom, they say, hello, good morning, rather than saying, hello, good morning. If you say hello, good morning, meaning, look, I'm here, but I don't want to be here. But you say, hello, good morning, I'm happy to be here. This changes everything. So it has to do with the presence of the teacher, and it has to do with what the teacher does with all the resources, textbooks included.
Wonderful. It says, where can I find the best resources for B1 texts?
Oh, there is, I didn't want to enter into commercials, okay, but the Cambridge page, okay, here, the Cambridge page offers that, as well as Trinity College, you know. Go to international exams, right, and the international exam providers also supply the world with sample material so that you can have access to tests, right? So this is interesting, okay? And they compete with each other, so they want to be good.
There is a question about graded readers. So if you think there are useful tools, graded readers.
Oh yes.
If they are useful tools in the classroom.
They are indeed, because I mean they have been thought of for that particular reason. Okay, so it doesn't generate anxiety. If you give, for example, if you give a very difficult book to somebody, okay, and the boy or the girl doesn't have the level, okay, might feel, you know, kind of deprived from having access to the book, but you might have a version that you might read for that particular level. Okay, so it's good because reading is not a language problem to me. Okay, reading is a life issue. Okay, so if you read, say for example, The Little Prince, okay, that's not a very good example, but let's think of any. Okay, little girls. You read Little Girls. When you have a good level of English, you might read the what you have in the market. Okay, but if you are younger and you still want to read, you might have a certain approach, and this has to do with your maturity, but you still read it, okay? So because it is a reading skill, not a language skill in itself.
Perfect. Is there any way that we can get them for free? Like graded readers?
Oh, that's something you have to ask publishers, I suppose. Yeah. Usually in competitions, they have prizes and that sort of thing. But there may be pages. Today, everything is open. So there may be pages. I can't say that.
I can answer that. I know that Oxford Bookshelf is providing with graded readers for free on this time of pandemia. So maybe you can get them from there.
And also, excuse me to add, but the graders, in most companies, they tend to associate graders to levels of Common European Framework. So these are the books for A2, for B1, you know, they highly recommend this.
Another question is, how can you balance a communicative program with the school aim to make the students get a certification?
How can I combine the community? Well, look, I'm going to say what you cannot do, right? Some schools or some authorities or some organizations, you know, they think that learners should sit for an international exam when they are at level 8, for example, primary school level, okay? And they have 5 hours a week, and they devote the 5 hours a week to prepare for this level. So they're very good at doing this, okay? But then they forget the essence of life, which is not sitting for an exam. Although I work for a company which provides exam, it's not the essence, okay? You also have to think critically. In this test, you don't have samples of critical thinking or creativity, okay? Literary writing, okay? There are lots of things that you can do. So what I suggest is combining efforts, okay? So, and when you combine efforts, it doesn't have to be just the teacher of English and the students. You have to involve parents, you have to involve authorities, you have to involve the community. This is a common task, right? So that everyone can understand this, right? But make room for everything, even for language, you know, the language system. I mean, it's good. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Culture is also there, you know, there are so many things, but this is to be shared with the community.
Wonderful. Yeah. Last one, I think, is that any daily life practical ideas to suggest our students to improve their speaking skills? Yeah.
There are chunks. I don't know if you know what that means. Chunks are pieces of language, let's say, which are fixed, such as, to my surprise, in a way, by the way, you know, these are chunks. In addition, these are chunks. And I have learned a lot from, once again, nursery school teachers, okay, kindergarten, right, pre-kinder. Have you seen, and even first year, second year, have you seen their classrooms? They're all decorated, okay? They're all sort of covered by messages. Can I go to the loo or the toilet? Excuse me, sorry, can I interrupt? Okay, can I ask you a question? Those are stimulus or stimuli, okay? So that this can be handy to begin with. The other thing is that I think in order to generate more English in our students, make of English your language of communication in the classroom, and perhaps not only in the classroom, outside the classroom, so that they can identify you as key speaks English. Okay, whatever you say, he speaks English. And even if you say something in Spanish, he understands, but he reacts in English. Okay, so I think that using this gives this kind of genuine, place so that they can improve their English, because somehow or other they will develop and English will come out, okay, eventually, right? Remember that there are certain things in English that we teach, and there are other things in English that we do not teach, but we expose our learners to, okay, such as thank you. You say thank you, thank you, thank you. You say thank you so often that it's there. You don't need to teach it, okay, because by definition or by extension, by repetition, they might learn that thank you is whenever I offer something and they say thank you, all right. So I learned it, okay. Yeah, somebody's raising the hand, I understand, on the chat, I think. Well, anyway, you guide this,
yes,
Carlita.
But if the person that is raising his or her hand can unmute your microphone and speak, that would be ideal. I cannot see the person, I think. Yeah. No? Okay. Can you see Alejandro who is raising his or her hand?
No, this was some time ago, but not anymore.
Okay, perfect. If there are no more questions, we can finish today. But before, I have very exciting news and an invitation for everyone. We have a webinar from Penny Ur for Uribe Education, and this is going to be on Saturday, August the 8th at 11 a.m. and it's going to be free. So everyone is invited to the webinar. Penny Ur is an amazing author, an amazing teacher, educator, as we all know. So we are going to be sending you information as soon as possible for you to be able to come to this webinar. So again, thank you very much for participating. Thank you, Alejandro, for this amazing webinar, and to everyone.
Thank you.
Hope to see you soon.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Bye.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye.